Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Ignite Sheboygan. My name is Ryan Thiel. I'm the committee chair for Ignite Sheboygan, and I'll also be serving as your MC this evening. We've got a great lineup of 5 speakers this evening. And for anyone that's new to Ignite, I'll give you the quick overview. Ignite started in Seattle, Washington in 2006. Since then, it's spread to over 350 Ignite chapters worldwide. And we're fortunate enough to have one right here in Sheboygan. And it's a special night for Ignite Sheboygan because it's our 1-year anniversary. So this is the 6th Ignite event we're having. Thank you. Ignite has a unique format where there are 20 slides that auto-advance every 15 seconds. So if you're not that great at math, I'll do it for you. That's a 5-minute speech right on the head. So it takes a little bit of practice to time your story to the slides, but we'll all be able to see the slides on the screen behind us. We'd like to thank Three Sheeps, and James, one of the owners, is also on our committee. So thank you, Three Sheeps, for hosting Ignite. Please be sure to tip your bartenders. And we'll do 3 speeches and then take a short break just in case anyone needs to get a refill on their refreshment. And then we'll move into the last 2. Our first story is an amazing story of faith involving 2 game shows, one of which was America's favorite game show, Wheel of Fortune. Please welcome Christy Winkler.
All right, here goes. 5 minutes. Oh, boy. Okay, well, to start off my story. Oh, not yet?
Sorry.
Okay, I don't want it to move forward. Okay, well, to start off my story, I had an alcoholic father who told me that I would never amount to anything. I'm sure he didn't mean it, but sometimes, you know, that happens. And so I ended up turning to alcohol and drugs myself, and I had 2 kids and decided I don't want this life anymore, so I gave it up, and I found some faith. They told me to find a higher power, and mine was Jesus. And I started finding myself, and I started feeling freer in my life, and I was a better mom. But then all of a sudden, I started having battles of holding jobs and things like that. And I said, Lord, where are you? You know, why aren't you helping me? And I told my friends that I was an Israelite in the desert and that God had a promised land for me. I was going to trust him. And I went to a conference, and some people were praying for me. And this young guy, he said, God is showing me a wheel. He's really going to use this wheel in your life. And I said to my friend, yeah, God's really going to use a wheel in my life. I just thought it was the craziest thing I ever heard. And I had a praying mom who watched Wheel of Fortune religiously. And Wheelmobile was coming to Steinhoffel's in Milwaukee, and she said, Chris, please be there. Go and audition, please, for me. And I said, okay, Mom. I went and auditioned. And in the meantime, I did find a good job. It was a nice job. But I still had a lot of financial pressures. And I felt like I was getting snippy at people, and I just wasn't myself, and I didn't like that. And so one morning I woke up and I said, God, I can't show up for work today. I just can't. I'm going to get snippy at people, and I don't want to be that way. And he said, Christy, I chose you. I'm the one changing you. Just get up, get dressed, and trust me. And I said, okay. That morning I had a P.O. box that I got my mail out of. And out of all the mornings to get that letter, I was chosen by Wheel of Fortune. But I wasn't just chosen by Wheel of Fortune. I knew that that God was confirming something. So the night before heading on the flight out to California, I was packing, and I kept hearing the word ketchup. And I knew it was God because he wouldn't leave me alone with it. And I thought, KCPU, who's going to call those letters? Usually it's RSTLNE or something like that. My son picked me up. We're driving, to head on the plane. And I said to my son, God will not leave me alone with the word ketchup. And he's thinking, yeah, God, she's got to catch up on her bills. I had so many that had accumulated through credit cards and things. So anyway, when I made it and I was doing the, learning about all the taping and everything, I was sitting upstairs looking down because I was Friday's show and they do Monday through Friday. And I wasn't getting anything. I had too much caffeine. And I was like, Lord, I'm not getting this. Then all of a sudden I saw the theme of the week. Guess what it was? Desert Passage. God was showing me, hey, Christy, I'm right here. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, okay. I made it to the bonus round, and guess what the word was? Ketchup. I almost bursted out crying, and Pat's like, oh, you think you're pretty funny, don't you? And I'm like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I just felt like I was standing in his presence, and he was a father that cared for me and was leading me. And so I ended up getting my debt paid, and it was just wonderful. I even told Pat, God told me the word ketchup, and he's like, yeah, and he's also giving you $30,000. So my grand total was $47,809. In the meantime, God also was leading me on another path. It was out to South Carolina to my favorite international ministry, and I got to be a part of that ministry for 4 years. I had so many plans and dreams and hopes, but then all of a sudden, I was broke again, and I couldn't find a job. Nothing was working out, and I'm like, God, you can't do that again. Now what am I going to do? And the only thing I could do was some people back in Wisconsin were offering to help me, so I had to pack as much stuff as I could in a car and wave goodbye to everyone. It was very hard. I didn't understand it, but I had to do what was in front of me to do, so I drove back to Wisconsin. I was staying at some friend's house, and in the meantime, I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep because I was applying for different jobs, and when I was out in Carolinas, I also did extra work for like movies and stuff, so I was looking for that online, thinking Milwaukee might have that, and all I could find was to apply for another game show. So this one you Skyped in. It was Let's Ask America. I ended up Skyping in from my son's living room, and I ended up winning $10,000 on that game show. I wish it was still airing. It's a really wonderful game show. But my last dream that came true so far was that I was able to self-publish a book, and I put it together to give hope to people. And even though I was writing a different book years ago and thinking, oh, I'm going to publish this, I just have this small book now to give hope to people and hope of publishing the other book. But just to end it, I just want to say that, sometimes, fathers might fall short. But for me, I was shown that I have a father that loves me. And now every time that I look at a bottle of ketchup, it represents Christ's blood that paid my debt. Thanks so much.
Wow. I don't know about you guys, but a story like that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up a little bit. Our next speaker's father-in-law was a gatherer of many things, including Currier and Ives dishes. Just how many plates are too many? Please welcome Mary Coxon.
As Ryan said, my father was a collector of many things. Actually, he wasn't so much a collector as a gatherer of things. Lots of things, as you can see in that picture. The Currier and Ives dishes is what I'm going to talk about tonight, and they're kind of distinctive. They're blue on white. Some people might say they're pretty or beautiful. Depends on how many you've seen, I suppose. But my father-in-law got them at a flea market in Chicago, Maxwell Street. And the flea market, he loved the haggling part of that flea market. He did that, and he had a plan for those dishes, too. He was going to purchase 2 12-place settings, one for each of his 2 sons. And his plan was going pretty well, except for the fact that the vendor never sold the dishes by place settings. He sold them by plates one week and cups and saucers another week, and maybe another week, nothing. It kept the customers coming back, and my father-in-law got to be a regular customer. Every time he'd see my father-in-law coming down the sidewalk, he knew he had a sale in the future. But they still did that haggling thing. That haggling was so important. This went on for a long time, in fact, weeks, maybe years. And then my father-in-law saw something new. He saw red and white. There weren't as many of these, and my father-in-law interpreted that to mean they were more valuable than the blue ones. So now, which son was going to get the red ones and which was going to get the blue? Like Solomon, he decided to divide the baby. Each one was going to get 6 place settings of red and 6 of blue. Problem solved, and the shopping continued. Every time he went to the flea market, he'd haggle over those prices, over the dishes. He'd bring them home, box them up, and put those boxes safely away. And this went on even longer, for years. I'm not kidding. As he got those dishes in those boxes, there was one thing he didn't do, and that was keep track of what he bought and where he put the boxes. So when he died in 1976 in the spring, he had no idea of how many dishes he had accumulated. From that weekend that he died, we had work cut out for us. My husband and his brother and sister-in-law and I bought a truck. We rented a warehouse in Madison, that's it with the arrow by it. And we started cleaning up all the accumulated treasures in the house in Chicago. Well, as we were working, we'd find boxes of dishes in the attic, boxes of dishes in the basement, boxes in the bedrooms, and boxes in 2 garages. No kidding. The first few boxes, we'd kind of smile, but by the time we got to 30 and 35 and 40 boxes, they were loud curses. We couldn't imagine how we were going to sell all of those dishes. We boxed them up by 8 place settings, but we had so many extra pieces that we also made dessert sets and tea sets, glassware sets, and serving sets. Boxes and boxes and boxes. When the day of the auction came in Madison, amazingly, we sold every box of dishes on that first day at a much better price than we could have imagined. But after the auction was over, we were exhausted. It had been 6 months of work. We'd had 4 days of auction and 6 days of garage sale in Sheboygan. I do love my father-in-law. I don't love those dishes. But I still like to think about the possibility that if we'd thought of it, if we'd had more time and a lot more energy, maybe we would have had a banquet served on Currier and Ives dishes. It would have been quite a bash, because in the end, my father-in-law had purchased enough dishes to host 176 guests. And that's a lot of dishes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Yep. Our mission with this Sheboygan Ignite chapter is to try to weave together this thick fabric of community through the sharing of stories. And a man like Mary's father-in-law with this interesting collection, that's just kind of stories we want to hear. We want to know what you're geeky about, the things that you're passionate about that other people might not know about. So think about the stories that you guys are holding on to and what you might be able to share. Our next speaker started his teaching career in the tumultuous years of teacher strikes, and it was during those years that he realized just how important it is for all citizens to become informed on issues, candidates, and how to participate in government. please welcome John Binder.
Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about my passion of trying to get more people involved in our democracy. That passion was reignited recently when a new organization formed in Sheboygan County. It was the League of Women Voters of Sheboygan County, a chapter of the National League. My passion developed during my teaching career. I started in Greenwood, Wisconsin in 1969. That's not one of my students, that's me. And those were, I spent 34 years helping kids learn mathematics, and I moved to Plymouth after retiring from there. Those were tumultuous years that when I started teaching, teachers were marching and protesting to get salaries and benefits that were professional. But that all ended with the Hortonville strike when 84 teachers were fired and the state of Wisconsin passed a binding arbitration law. It made me realize that my voice needed to be heard by voting and visiting with my legislators on a constant basis, both at the local level, state level, and the national level. But all of us need to be involved. Many of us are not. That's why I appreciate the League of Women Voters. They provide lots of avenues for women and men to get involved, learn about the issues, about the candidates, and to participate in our democracy. The League was formed in 1920, right after women marched and protested until they won the right to vote. Those same women formed the League of Women Voters, and the centerpiece of their organization is to involve all people in our democracy. And there's many issues that we work on and we promote. And one of the main ones that we are concerned about is improving accessibility to the voting booth. We all know about voter photo ID. Most of us have driver's license, and that takes care of it, but many do not. So they have to go to the DMV to get a free photo ID to vote in Wisconsin. Free, but the freedom to get it is filled with roadblocks. For example, if we have people that use public transportation and they have a normal work schedule, work day, work week, they'll find that the same hours that they work, the DMV is only open during those hours. And even on days they might have off, before or after holiday, they'll find that it's also closed. Another problem we have is with voter registration. Some people find that cumbersome. So we have automatic voter registration in some states where you visit a government agency and you'll be automatically registered to vote. 10 states do that, 20 more are considering it. There's a national bill before Congress which will require all states. That will increase participation. And we need to increase participation. We've had big gaps for the past 20 years between people that are eligible to vote with people that are actually registered to vote and then people that actually go to the polls to vote. We need to fix that. I've been knocking on doors in Plymouth of non-registered people trying to talk them into getting registered and to vote. We are proud of a website that we have, vote411.org, which has all the information you need about elections and voting. And it also connects to sites like My Vote Wisconsin, where you can actually register online. We also work with school systems. We partnered with Milwaukee Public Schools with My Vote, My Voice. It's a program to help our 18-year-olds get registered and to experience virtual voting machines so they're ready when they go into the voting booth. They say that an informed electorate is the backbone of a healthy democracy. So the League offers many kinds of meetings, candidate forums, issue forums, panel discussions to inform the public about the voting. The League has a long history of being a venerated organization. They are nonpartisan, but they work with people on both sides of the aisle on issues of the day. And another one of our big issues is the environment. We have published many papers supporting the conservation of our natural resources, and we have meetings that are available to inform the public about, for example, clean water and clean air, how important that is. Those folks that started the League back in 1920 would be proud at how the League has expanded over almost 100 years now. We're still kicking up our heels and our boots to help educate the public open up voting and protect our environment. And now we're in Sheboygan. And we're 86 strong after only forming a couple of months ago. Check us out. We are going to ignite democracy in Sheboygan County, the state, and in this nation. And that's my story. And I'm going to ask you, are you all registered to vote? If you're not, check out the guy in the t-shirt. And if you know of people that are not, talk to them. Get them registered. Tell them that their vote is their voice to make our democracy healthier and make it work for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We're going to take a brief intermission so you can get a refill on your beverages. And also, if you're interested, we do have a contact sign-up list directly to my right by all that delicious beer that's aging. It's on the counter over there. And we also have a donation bin. This is a completely volunteer-run organization, Ignite Sheboygan. We just have a team of about 5 people that makes these events happen. So we appreciate your donations. We'll put all that money towards improving the quality of our Ignite events in the future. So please grab a beer and sign up on the contact list. Cool story I just heard from the intermission. Christy ran into Roberta, who happened to be here tonight, just coincidentally, who was sitting next to her at her Wheel of Fortune audition and actually held her purse. So that's just the kind of stuff that Ignite Sheboygan can put together. Pretty neat. Small world for sure. And I would be remiss if I did not mention, in addition to signing up on our contact list, be sure to like us on Facebook. That's probably the best way to stay connected with Ignite Sheboygan in the year 2017 and to stay in tune with what events we'll be having in the future. We will be putting out our 2018 schedule by the end of the month. So be sure to like us on Facebook so you can stay connected that way as well. Who doesn't find a little therapy in settling down for the night with a Netflix marathon or two? Our next speaker shares how binge-watching television helped his family find some closure after a tragedy. Please welcome Nathan Stewart.
I love binge-watching television. 3 or 4 hours, no big deal. A lot of people think it's a colossal waste of time, but there's at least once I think that doing that helped me help my family work through some things that happened to us. The show that particularly helped us is called Deadwood. It's been described as a vulgar Shakespearean Western, right up my alley. It's loosely based on the actual figures that settled the Black Hills, South Dakota area. So this is about the time frame of Jack McCall murdering Wild Bill Hickok. Before I get to how the show actually helped, I need to tell you about a phone call that I received. This phone call was something that I will unfortunately never forget. It's seared into my memory, one of those tragic events. On late February in 2013, my mother called to tell me that not only had my uncle passed away unexpectedly, but he had taken his own life. And when something like this happens, you immediately ask, why? Unexpected death is hard enough as it is, but it's hard for us to grasp. So we looked for a note. We hoped for a note. And there wasn't one. And we found out that oftentimes there isn't a note left. When there is, it's sometimes left in anger. So we felt like we were in despair almost. And so we tried to sit around one night and think, is there anything? We had no clue. And all of a sudden, my aunt said, well, it's really random, but he was complaining of a weird smell. And he talked about how he kind of smelled kind of like sewage. It was just putrid. And it was coming from the drain in their basement. And he thought maybe something crawled down there and died. My aunt couldn't smell it. He had 2 different plumbers come. They couldn't find anything, and they couldn't smell anything. And so now I kind of come back to how Deadwood helped. There was a character in that show where he started experiencing seizures, and they attribute it to a brain tumor. But there's one line that he says in there to one of the main characters. He says, "I apologize for the stench of death that is emanating from me right now. No matter how much I wash, I cannot get rid of it." And they're like, "What are you talking about? You smell fine." Well, I do some research, and I find out that there's this phenomenon called phantosmia, smelling phantom smells that just don't exist, and they're always, the word that was used was putrid. And it's some more research. I come to find out that there's an association between suicide and phantosmia, sometimes caused by tumors. They're not exactly sure. So it's known about, but it's not very commonly known about. And so you ask the question, what if? What if we had known about this? More importantly, what if my uncle felt the need to say something more than just something's going on? What if he felt the need to really express that something was wrong? I feel there's a bigger story here. 70 to 75% of suicides are men in this country. And there's a stigma attached to expressing emotions if you're a man. We know about it. There are campaigns that they have created to try and get men to engage using humor, parody, to get people to disarm and engage and possibly get some help by normalizing. There's another story, I think, that's kind of similar too, and that's the suicide associated with our veterans. 22 a day is what the statistic is. There's a similar association. There's a stigma of mental health. I have a previous student. He went into the Marines after he graduated, and he's now a civilian. Twice in the last few months, he's posted something on Facebook about losing someone that he served with to suicide. That's a problem. So, if you haven't figured out, this isn't exactly a story about Netflix. This isn't a story really about what happened to me or my family. We need to ask, what if people like my Uncle Mark felt like it's okay to say something is wrong? What if we normalized the idea that every one of us, at some point in time in our lives, will experience at least one mental health issue? So, while my story might not have had a happy ending, what I hope you will do is to help carry this message so that perhaps someone else will find their happily ever after. Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Very important issue to shed some light into that darkness, and that's what I believe is, thank you for being vulnerable and sharing such a personal story, because sometimes our story could be the key to unlocking someone else's prison. So thank you for that, Nathan. Our final storyteller grew up a Beatles fan and spent his early career working in the music industry. Tonight, he shares the story of meeting Sir Paul McCartney and spending time with him in the recording studio. Please welcome Randy Schwerer.
That name has too many letters on it. When I was a young boy, I was fairly clueless on what I wanted to become. Many will say I'm still clueless, but that's a different issue. Well, one day in December, as I laid on the floor on 26th Street watching TV, Ed Sullivan said, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles," and my life changed forever. I saw, I heard, I found an emotion I had never had before, and I said, I'm going to be a Beatle. And my mother said, okay, but first I have to teach you to tune the guitar, which she did. I did become a Beatle in high school. For 3 years I had a band, and it was at North High School in Sheboygan. And we were lucky enough to do well. That's me in the center down in the middle, rather dashing young man. with my paisley pants. Then we stepped it up a step as we decided we needed to look more Beatle-esque. And there we are, in all our glory, making nothing but money 2 nights a week, all through high school, wondering, wow, this is it, we made it. Well, things were going incredible, and then after I graduated, I said, heck, I'll get with a couple other guys and I'll continue to make big money. And at this time, I was making $150 a week, and I knew success was mine. As I continued on the path, we changed our name to Purple People, grew our hair, and had it dyed purple. Now I'm making $300 a week because people were coming out to see those idiots with the purple hair. Well, as would be the case, I met Wonder Woman, most beautiful woman I had ever imagined, and wound up that she was sweet, and after she snubbed me one time, she did talk to me the next time. Well, I decided the tour had to end, so on my last tour, we were touring Canada, and after 3.5 years, I said, that's it, I'm done playing. I'm going to give you what you've given me, unconditional love and support. So I hung up everything that I had, played last gigs, last shows, and made everybody in the group happy, and said to her, now we disappear. We moved to Chilton. Well, of course, after we were there a while, what did she give me but a set of twins? They told us they may not survive. They were 2 and 3 pounds when they were born, and we had to face the fact that we would not take them home. But we did. The boy in the back is Aaron. The girl in the front is Rhonda. 8 months after we took them home, they said, Aaron has cerebral palsy. We don't know if he'll ever walk or talk. We cried for 2 weeks. Then I said, okay, let's deal with it. My wonderful partner said, why don't you do some music projects? I put some bands together, produced some records, and oh my gosh, what would happen in my life but gold records and platinum records and songs in movies. All of that, and I couldn't believe it was happening to me. So, after all this amazing success in the music industry, and I knew I wasn't going to be a Beatle, I did meet one. Met Sir Paul McCartney at an IndyCar race. I said, I need to talk to you for a minute, if I may. I need to thank you for 2 things. Because of you and your band, I've supported my family. We raised them because of you. They loved music because of you. And he said, I hope we did a good job. I said, we did a great job. But also, I need to thank you for my son, Aaron, who we were told may never walk or talk. His whole life, all he aspired to be is Paul McCartney. He more than became Paul McCartney. He's on numerous albums and made a big decision in his life, being hearing impaired, to move where? From Los Angeles to Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So then I sent a fax to Paul and said, sure was nice meeting you. It would be honored if Aaron could meet you. I got a call 2 days later, and they said, Paul would like you and Aaron to meet him at the studio. We wound up spending an hour and a half in the recording studio with Paul McCartney, listening to new songs he was recording and discussing Aaron's life and my life in the music industry with Paul. We were honored. This is our family that's all experienced and grown through the music industry. My oldest daughter worked for Prince for 6 years. Our son was a musician, and our youngest, the twin sister, always said, he's the musician, I don't want to sing. So she was the one that kept us in line. That's my family, that's my story. Thank you.
Wow, what an awesome story. Well, that wraps up all of our speakers this evening. And I'd like everyone to give a round of applause for Richard from WSCS. They come out, do all the video for us at every Ignite event. So thank you, Richard. And I'd like to just recognize all of our Ignite team afterwards. If you're milling around here, please have another beer, stick around, chat, If you're interested in speaking, please give either me or one of the committee members your contact info so we can get you down. Next event will likely be in January. Jose Gonzalez, are you still here? There's Jose. He does all of our video work. Nia Yang does all of our media and Facebook posts. Nia's in the back of the room. And Carolyn Lee, she's raising her hand in the back right there. And also James Owen, as I mentioned. And Charlie Krebs couldn't make it tonight. He had a play rehearsal to attend, but he's typically our MC and does a great job giving all of the speakers feedback. He's a communication coach and professor at Lakeland College. So again, we would like to thank all of you. Oh, Lisa, sorry. Lisa's here too. Lisa Vijos, former committee chair and one of our biggest cheerleaders. Also, Betsy Alice, I think, is still in the house, who brought Ignite to Sheboygan. So thank you all. And I'd like to thank all of you for coming out, because this is why we do it, to get the community involved, try to create this community through the sharing of stories and ideas. So think about what you're geeky about, what you're passionate about, and please come share a story with us at our next event. Thank you very much.